All right, welcome to another episode of The More You Know, special episode today. And today we're joined with my good friend Jack Wydra. Jack, can you give us a brief introduction?
Hey everyone, my name is Jack. I am a software engineer based in Chicago. Thank you, Brian, for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys about this super cool event that went down. It was really cool to see, and I'm looking forward to recapping it for all of you who don't really have the time or don't want to put in the effort to watch it. So if you want to listen to it, I do have my own podcast called Pardon My Tech. It's available on Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere you want to listen to podcasts. So thank you for having me on, Brian, and feel free to hit up my podcast if you have a moment.
And I will link his podcast in the description of this podcast. But if you guys didn't know, today was the announcement of the iPhone 12 and the HomePod Mini from Apple. And me and Jack and I are going to do a nice little coverage for it, so you guys don't have to watch the 1 hour briefing of it. So, the first thing, well, let's first start off with the cinematography of
Oh my
the whole
gosh.
event. Like, come on now.
Wow. Wow. That I felt like that was the main event. They had some of the best camera shots. And keep in mind that the shots that they showed were of Apple's work building. It was of, the innovation center. And
Oh my god,
so
it's so beautiful.
imagine someone making your work building look that good. Like I just can't imagine that. So I felt like the shots they took of the building and of, just California in general were so beautiful.
Yeah, honestly, like I kind of prefer I mean like these are obviously like pre-recorded, but I definitely prefer this over like the live. It's kind of
Yeah,
more.
I mean, there's perks to both. There's perks to both. I feel like the live is more like genuine. You can really like feel their excitement, whereas this pre-recorded was more beautiful and perfect, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel that. But the first thing that they started with in this event was the HomePod Mini. And
Hmm.
the HomePod Mini, for me, I think it's a good addition. I think that the original HomePod was a little bit too big and a
Hmm.
little bit overpriced.
Sure, sure. So what Apple's trying to do with the HomePod Mini is they're trying to bring to market a real competitor for the Amazon line of products. And I feel like they might have done that. The main perk to the HomePod Mini, and right off the bat, it's a smaller and it's a more refined version of Apple's smart speaker, as Brian was saying. And right off the bat, they outlined how great the audio would be coming out of the device. They said Siri is going to be present and she's going to be doing everything for you. And no matter how many people you have in your home, it's going to be responsive to everyone and their own personal needs. So I feel like that whole package is really a good competitor for, almost the monopoly that Alexa currently has on the smart home market.
Yeah, yeah, definitely agree with that. And this is a good way to lock you in to the Apple
Hmm.
ecosystem even more because they make sure that every single device is compatible with this and that you can communicate with this device wherever you are, even with
Definitely.
CarPlay too.
Definitely.
And one thing that I don't know if they touched on it, but I think it's pretty cool about they have this feature called the intercom feature, and that works like if you're like a parent and you're in the kitchen and you want to tell the kids that dinner is ready, you can just say, "Hey Siri, intercom, dinner is ready," and then it'll
Yep.
just broadcast that to every single speaker, which I think is pretty cool. Like
And
if you have a family.
not only the speakers, it'll also go to iOS devices. So
Oh,
if
really?
you only have one, HomePod Mini in the kitchen, and you say, broadcast to the family that dinner's ready, then it'll go to their phone or to their Apple Watch and tell them, Jack sent a message, and then they can play it. Like sort of when you send an audio message in a text conversation.
Hmm. And I definitely think that this HomePod Mini is meant for families because I
Hmm.
don't think that this would be meant for like a one bedroom apartment. I would
I
say
agree.
so, because
I agree.
the thing that they did mention is that if you buy multiple HomePod minis, you can sync them up. And I don't know if like Alexas can do this or not, but do they normally not like sync when you play music?
So I'm not too positive on that, but I know like Alexis can sync up to know, if there's one echo in one room and a couple dots around the apartment, they can all know of each other. But what I thought was pretty impressive about the HomePod Mini was that you could put, let's say, you know, one mini on your left side of your TV and one mini on your right side of your TV, and then they'll link up and almost play a surround sound like music. That's
Hmm.
what they're trying to get at, is that they can communicate with each other and figure out that they're both there and they're both playing music to the same person in the same room.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's awesome that the Apple can actually like find the technology to do that. One thing that I kind of didn't understand was like when they were talking about the audio that comes out of the HomePod Mini, they were talking
Yep.
about computational audio or something. Do you know? Do you know much about what they were talking about on that point?
Computational audio. So I don't really
Like that
understand that
sounded
one.
so complex, and I was like, "Why are you making this so hard, Apple? Audio is audio."
So I was gonna wait to say this until we got to the iPhone, but I felt really strongly that this whole presentation that Apple was giving, as I was saying, it was absolutely perfect. There were no flaws with the whole presentation, which is, one of the flaws with a pre-prepared presentation. It almost felt like an insanity loop of words that we've heard before, like, cutting edge, I don't know, perfection, breaking the barriers. I don't know. It just felt like we were on some sort of loop that Apple was saying computational. I don't know. It just felt like ingenuine that there were so many of those complex words thrown at us.
Yeah, yeah, like they're trying to over like I feel like they're trying to overhype their product by using very like actionable words or like
Right.
very
Yeah,
extreme
that's a great
words.
way of putting it.
But yeah, like when they said computational audio and I was like, are you joking right now? Come on.
And I'm sure
But
there is some science to it. I'm not going to discount that. I'm looking forward to seeing how crisp the audio quality of the HomePod Mini is, because that's something that can make a difference.
yeah,
But I don't think you need to oversell it. I think you can just say we have great audio.
yeah, yeah, basically. Or just say like we have better audio than our competitors. But
Sure.
But yeah, that was kind of it for the Apple HomePod Mini. It starts at $99,
Mm-hmm.
which what do you think of that price?
99.
I
That's
think it's
affordable.
fair.
That's
Yeah,
affordable.
I
The
think it's
one
fair.
thing that Amazon beats that on is that often the Amazon Dots and the Amazon Echoes, they go on sale a lot. Like,
True.
for example, today's Prime Day, today and tomorrow. And I think an Echo Dot is like $19 or something absurd like that. So when you're asking for $99 for a HomePod Mini, although the technology within the HomePod Mini is far superior to an Echo Dot, that's a lot of money on top of the $19 for the Echo
Yeah.
Dot. So I don't know. It's just
It depends who you
ninety
are.
nine. Yeah, it depends who you are, depends what you need it for. And it depends if you want to get yourself further ingrained into the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah. And of course, Apple also had to hit on that this is a big that your privacy
Oh
is
yeah.
also safe, because Apple loves to rub that into Android's face and saying that
That
your
was
data is always private, and I laugh every single
Yeah.
time.
That was a common theme throughout the entire presentation, was how secure your data is and how many options Apple gives you for whether you want your HomePod Mini sharing its data recordings to Apple or whether you don't. I believe they didn't say this explicitly in the presentation, but I believe that the perk to sharing that with Apple is possibly more advanced personalization for your HomePod Mini. So it'll kind of learn who you are and what you like. Whereas if you don't share that data, you might be restricted in that sense. But I don't know. That's up to the user in particular.
That's a scary thought. Apple's building a me.
They already have a you.
Facebook has a me just everywhere. It just has a different dimension of myself. But that makes us go into the next big enchilada, the
Hmm.
one that we've all been waiting for, the ones that we've been probably reading leaks about, the iPhone 12. Initial thoughts from what they announced.
Initial thoughts, I wasn't surprised by almost anything they had to offer. In my last episode of my podcast, I gave a brief preview of the iPhone 12, and almost everything I touched on was what they announced. So that was a little anticlimactic. The one thing that I was impressed with, and the single thing that I was surprised by, was their ceramic shield innovation for the screen. And
Honestly, yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. It looks like it's gonna be very hard to break, 4 times harder than the previous iteration of the iPhone, which, as we all know, was already pretty hard to break. So being 4 times more resistant is quite an achievement. On top of that, the the big headline thing of this phone is the 5G support, and
yes,
they brought on the Verizon spokesman who basically said for a long, long time, people have been saying 5G's coming, 5G's coming. Well, I'm here to tell you that 5G is here. We have, support in, I believe the cities were New York, Chicago, and LA, I want to say.
yeah,
And so while it's not nationwide yet, it is here technically. But
yeah,
I don't know. For me, 5G support being the headliner of this iPhone 12, while it is important and while it's a huge innovation, eh, I'm
yeah.
not hugely impressed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They like all of like Wall Street too. They were hyping it up like Apple's gonna announce the 5G phone, and then I'm like, what's so cool about 5G? Like
Right.
what mobile carrier is carrying 5G right now?
Right.
Maybe T-Mobile, but T-Mobile to me, I'm not the biggest fan of T-Mobile, but
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, as I said, it's so I live in Chicago, and I do like in the top right corner wherever they show, the little cellular connection, I see the little 5G icon. So I think AT&T might have 5G in Chicago. I don't know if that's kind of a pseudo um a misnomer for the 5G or if that's actually 5G. That's my
does
whole
it
confusion on the issue.
is it
Um
5GE on your phone?
I think so. I think
Because if
so.
it's 5GE, that's like AT&T being kind of to be like
Tricky. Yeah,
tricky
5GE.
and
Yeah.
just naming it 5GE, but it's actually LTE basically.
Right. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, they for some reason changed up the naming scheme of it to make it seem like you're getting some really good speeds, but
Right.
it's actually just LTE, which
Well,
is insanity.
you briefly mentioned Wall Street. And speaking more on that, I looked at the Wall Street stock reactions to this. And while after the Verizon guy came out and gave his 2 minutes of 5G is here, and Verizon's going to be the one to lead the charge towards that. Verizon's stock price bumped up quite a bit. However, throughout the hour and a half of this presentation, Apple's stock price actually fell 3%. And I have a feeling that's because the stockholders, the viewers, were not impressed with what came out from the iPhone. They weren't wowed by the 5G support.
Yeah. And while we're on that topic, let's break down what they announced. Please add anything that I do miss.
Yeah.
But basically, from what I've read, and I mean from what I've read and watched, what's new on the iPhone 12 is the A14 Bionic chip, new GPU, new neural network, New durable glass. The design is really nice. Water resistant of 6 meters now for 30 minutes instead of 3 meters. And basically just some other like videos, like Dolby Vision, for
Yep.
photos and videos.
So
But
yeah,
other than that, there's nothing really new. The design, I like the design a lot. It looks like the iPhone 4 design, and I personally like the iPhone 4 design of like this square of the squared off. But other than that, that's all that I can like take from it. Did I miss anything?
well, the only thing is, I think the Dolby video support is only for the Pro. I could be wrong on that, but my understanding was the Pro was more geared towards photography and uh, cinematography. So I'm not sure on that, but
Mm-hmm.
the for the iPhone 12 period, I the only things were Green Initiative, which they had a whole segment on,
That's
which
very cool, actually.
yeah, it did it looked like they were aiming towards sustainability. They brought out some stats like I forget the exact numbers, but they said um, basically what we're doing will be the equivalent of not producing like I don't know.
Oh yeah, 450,000 cars
Right.
off of the
Yeah.
road.
Wow. Wow. That is like amazing.
Yeah, I
But
saw that, and then I was like, "Holy crap!"
so for those of you wondering, the Green Initiative and what it's doing is basically just removing the cabled headphones and the wall adapter for the charger from the Apple iPhone box. And so they went into detail on how that would be saving the environment because they don't have to, mine the precious metals and things like that. So that's great for the environment. Um, I like having wall adapters just on
Same.
hand. So I would have liked to keep those, but I do have AirPods, so I'm not too broken up about the wired headphones being lost. And
Yeah.
the one other thing that they did introduce, well, reintroduce, I guess, is the MagSafe. And
Ooh.
yeah, uh,
Before we touch on that, I did want to
mhm.
also mention I can't believe that I forgot this, but they also have this new Super Retina XDR display. It looks promising, but yeah, I don't know about it. It just looks like
That
the colors are gonna be more sharp, but definitely interesting. But yes,
definitely
MagSafe.
interesting. And you know, so the cool thing about the Super Retina display is that it's an OLED display. So basically, you're going to get deeper blacks and brighter colors. And
Yeah,
so with OLED displays, the pixels are able to be uniquely controlled one by one. It's not one light panel behind some pixels in front of it. It's actually each pixel being individual. And so when a pixel is supposed to represent black, that pixel will actually be able to shut off completely rather than representing what it thinks is black, which as a lot of us know actually comes out to be some sort of dull grayish weird color. So it results in much deeper black. So I like that upgraded display, but that's another thing, Brian, that it's just every year we get the same buzzwords and I'm just kind of exhausted of it from Apple
yeah,
just throwing the same things at me every year.
yeah. Like I don't think it was necessary for them to put super
Yeah.
in front of it. Like if you just said Retina XDR display, you would have sold me. But super just makes it seem like okay, come on now.
Yeah, easy. Easy.
But but yeah, MagSafe. I think like the way that they're trying to put MagSafe is weird.
I
Um,
yeah.
it's
If you want to
the
just
way
go
that they're
into detail onto like what it is.
I mean, yeah. MagSafe is probably the only reason why I refuse to upgrade my MacBook Pro up to the new ones. So MagSafe is like the magnetic chargers that you can get on your laptop. I don't know the specifics behind it, but I definitely like it because if talking from like a MacBook Pro stance, I can't tell you the number of times I've tripped over my laptop charger, and thankfully for MagSafe, since it's magnetic, it doesn't take my whole laptop down. It just rips the charger out, which is nice.
Hmm.
But the way that they're doing it for iPhones, I'm not a big fan of because it's literally just sticking to the back of your phone through a
Right.
magnet. And why would you do that when you can just plug in a cord?
Well, so I am kind of in a unique position because I currently charge my phone through, the magnetic. I don't have to plug anything in. I just kind of set it on my little charging docker, and I it's a docking station for my watch, for my AirPods, and for my phone. And
Oh, I
so
want one of those.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool. But what I'm lacking, and I tried Googling this after the presentation, like I tried doing my research, so I'm sorry I don't have more specifics on this, but I don't understand how this is any different than what we already have. They made this such a big selling point. They're like, "Oh wow, we have MagSafe on this." And I'm like, you already have MagSafe. Like the only thing they introduced really was more accessories to go with the MagSafe, which was just like a wallet, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think like they tried selling the MagSafe component as a accessory rather than a charger, which is completely opposite of like what I would think that MagSafe would be. But yeah, it's just literally like you know how you can get those like little wallets that you can like tear off, and then there's like a 3M sticky thing on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
They're basically replacing that, but with a cleaner solution and probably going to be overcharged.
It has an Apple logo on
Yeah,
it.
like it doesn't make any sense. And like if they made a like I would have appreciated this more if like they put it as like you put the docking pad on a desk, and then once you put your phone on it, the mag the the magnets will just pull it into place so you can
Mm,
charge it.
gotcha.
But the way that they did it, they just made it seem like you can use your phone with this circle like charging pad on the back of it. And I'm like, why would you like that kind of like I don't know. It defeats the
Yeah,
whole purpose of like wireless charging because like why would you want to have this big circle thing on the back of your phone where you put
right.
your hand when you're using your phone?
I'm glad to hear I wasn't the only one who didn't understand that because that means that they missed the mark when explaining what it was.
Yeah,
Um,
because for me I have a wireless charging pad in on my desk, and
uh-huh.
whenever I'm doing PC work I just put my phone in front of me and it charges.
Sure.
If it had the MagSafe on it where I can just plop it down and it'll auto connect, like auto align, I would appreciated that way better, like way more.
Right.
But the
Yeah,
way that
that's
they
true. That's
but
true.
the way that they went upon this was not the greatest.
Hmm. And I
But
think they kind of started off the presentation by saying something along the lines of, we know there's docking stations for, charging your phone magnetically, but sometimes your phone will be a little misaligned and, the charging won't be as efficient or it won't charge at all. And so that's where I thought the presentation was going, was like trying to fix that with like a notification that would say your phone's charging, at 100% efficiency. But
that
instead
would have been
they
nice.
I
That
think
like honestly that would have been nice.
I think I should be a developer at Apple.
For
Um,
real.
but they ended up going down this MagSafe path, and I just got lost. I don't know.
Like like the way that I can kind of think about this is kind of like with my Apple Watch, and how you put it on your Apple Watch is just gonna sit there.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
can't use your Apple Watch while like you're using it, but I don't know, it's just weird.
The good thing about
But
the Apple Watch charger is that you don't have to, think about positioning it. So maybe that's what MagSafe is trying to do. When you have your Apple Watch charger, you just kind of like throw it on there and it positions itself.
yeah. Yeah, that's how I completely think about wireless charging is that you just throw your phone down and you don't use it. But when they advertise it, when you are using your phone with the MagSafe, it blows my mind. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why? Like you can use
Right.
a supercharger, like big Apple breaks that are like 30 watts or something,
Yep.
and just put a USB C into your phone without the clutter. It'll
Yeah,
probably
or you
get
could just you could put like a Mophie case on your phone, which, I don't know
honestly,
if you've used one of those before, but it you kind of when you're charging your phone at night, you charge both your phone and the Mophie case, and then when your phone is at 20% or so, you switch on the Mophie case and it's plugged into your phone already, so it'll charge back.
that's
It
very
gives you like a
convenient.
full charge of, a full 100% right there. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
And then after the iPhone 12, I mean, yeah, the iPhone 12 announcement, they had this whole little like funny cutscene that was supposed to be like mimicking a James Bond scene where they unbox suitcases and one suitcase leads to another suitcase, and then lo and behold, the final product is the iPhone 12 mini. I think, what do you think of the iPhone 12 mini?
I like it. I
Same.
so the iPhone 12 comes out at a 6.1-inch display. And so the iPhone 12 mini is a 5.4-inch OLED display. It has all of the same features as the iPhone 12. So I I personally I have the iPhone XS Max right now,
Same.
and I think next time I get a phone, I'll go down in size a bit because this is almost, too big, just to hold comfortably in your hand and being able to text with one hand. Sometimes I run into issues there. So, I
I
might go
totally agree.
down. I don't know if I'll go down totally to the iPhone 12 mini, but I might go down to the regular size.
Yeah. iPhone 12 mini, I I personally like it because it gives you everything that the iPhone 12 has but in a smaller form. They compared it to the size of the iPhone 8 but
Mhm.
like with more screen size,
Right. So it's
which is
basically
awesome.
it's the phone, I believe, is the same size as the iPhone 8. It's
Yes.
just the screen takes
You
up,
just get more.
but it's the full screen now. It's not it you don't no longer have that bezel. It's just the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the iPhone 12 mini, similarly to the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, similar to, what Brian was saying earlier, they all come with the A14 chip. Brian, I don't know if you're planning on touching on the chip, but I do have
Yeah.
some specifics for what it actually is about.
Yeah, please do hit upon that because I feel like some people might upgrade because of the chip.
Hmm.
So if maybe you could talk, if you could, compare it to the A13 or even the A12.
Yeah, for sure. So each phone lineup traditionally comes with this new chip, and it's a processor within the phone, which holds, the CPU, which is the processing unit for the entire phone, and then the GPU, which is the graphical processing unit for the phone. And it also holds other things like imaging processing unit and miscellaneous stuff like that. Um, in regards to comparing it to the A13, the A14 promises small bumps. I read online that it promises a 16% bump in performance compared to the A13, and compared to the A12, it brings a 40% CPU improvement and a 30% boost in graphics. And so what this told me is, on a gaming front, if you're trying to game on your iPhone, I don't know if this is sufficient to be the new status quo. I don't think it's enough to be like, oh, you're gaming on your iPhone. That's normal. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's
Yeah,
coming. I don't think we're there yet. However, one thing that this A14 chip is going to be really good at, and something that they kind of touched on a lot throughout the presentation, was that when you're taking a picture and adjustments need to be made to that picture, whether it's in dark mode or using one of the various sensors that the camera uses, there's some computation that needs to be put in place for that picture to have the maximum resolution, to be the highest definition. And what the iPhone 12 is able to do is do that computation at a very, very quick speed. So I think there will be a noticeable upgrade in the shutter speed between the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 11 because of this A14 chip. So I think that's where you see the improvement, not so much in gaming, which they actually had a segment on within this Apple event.
But so far, iPhone 12 doesn't seem like anything too special to me. Some caveats that they did not mention that I'm very, very mad about is anything about a battery.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are supposed to be battery improvements, but that's not something they mentioned. Granted, I agree with you. That's something that I care a lot about because that's something that Android consistently puts them in the dirt for is the battery issues with the iPhone. And it's not a quote unquote issue. It's your iPhone can last for a day, but an Android can last for traditionally much longer. Um,
Hmm.
so the one thing I heard about this is that they were originally considering giving the iPhone 12 or one of the higher versions, the iPhone 12 Pro or the Pro Max. They were considering giving it, I believe it was 120 FPS frames per second. And what that would help with is, the gaming and uh, the cinematography that we were touching on before. However, they didn't do so because of battery concerns. So that's the only thing that I read online about it. There wasn't too much.
Hmm. Yeah, I looked on Apple's website and I did the compare iPhone models. And right now, comparing them to the iPhone 11, it's still showing a 17-hour battery life, which
Mhm.
really concerns me because all of this tech that they're adding to it, 5G with a better and brighter screen, I'm really curious on how the battery will hold up on that part.
Right.
So the fact that they didn't even mention anything about that is really concerning to me. Another thing that still gets me about basic iPhones, for the iPhone 12s, is the base storage of 64 gigs. If they're trying to add more camera features on to these iPhones, they better be giving us more memory because that adds up very, very fast.
Yes, I agree. I believe the iPhone 12 Pro comes with uh
128.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one geared more towards the
For,
photographers. So I think that might be their response to that issue.
yeah. And then honestly, iPhone 12, like, it still has a 12 megapixel camera. Like, if you look at the stats comparing them to the iPhone 11, all the camera stats are the same except for the Dolby Vision part of it,
Hmm.
which is really disappointing to me because, like, you would have thought they would have upgraded it to something. Because I feel like the pixel is at like what 18 or 24 megapixels right now or something. It's something big up there.
Yeah, I believe you're correct.
Yeah, that's basically all for the iPhone 12 and 12 mini.
Hmm.
Anything that we missed, you think?
So the other thing, I guess, is the color options.
Oh, yes.
So the iPhone 12 color options, they're actually pretty cool.
They're really
I believe I
nice.
saw blue, red, white, black,
Space gray.
yeah, space gray or black, and I believe there was gold for iPhone 12, or was that just the Pro?
That's the Pro, but they
Okay,
also have a
okay.
green.
Oh, and
They
a
have a.
green for the 12. Yes,
It's kind of like a key lime pie
it
type of
is.
green,
It is.
like a very light green. But yeah,
It's strange, but it's something to change the pace. I feel like iPhone has been the same aesthetically for a while. And so, like you were saying earlier, having the flat sides and, having these color options, that's a pretty cool change. It's
yeah.
something to change the pace a bit.
The olive green for the iPhone 11 was actually really nice,
Yeah.
and like the Pacific blue that they have is really, really clean too.
I think, whatever Apple does aesthetically, it always hits. You're not going to get,
Yeah.
a mustard yellow iPhone.
Flashback to like the iPhone 5,
Oh yeah.
5C
Okay,
days.
maybe you might get a
Oh
mustard.
man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all that wraps up for the iPhone 12. now we get to the iPhone 12 Pros.
Yup.
And oh my god, these look so nice. I saw the stainless steel edges and I'm like, oh my god, you have me already.
They look beautiful. They
Oh,
they
the
really do.
the gold just looks phenomenal.
Oh
The
yeah.
gold looks phenomenal.
It looks
So
like something that Goldfinger from James Bond, like that villain.
yes,
It looks like
yes.
something he would have. That's the first thing that popped into my mind.
Oh my god. But
But yeah, I when when it came onto the screen, I was like, wow,
yeah,
that
same.
is an iPhone. But then when I believe Tim Cook was speaking, and he's like, on this iPhone, you get a stainless steel band, and I'm like, that's the first thing you're going to talk about when you're introducing an iPhone 12 Pro
Dude,
is the
honestly,
stainless
yes.
steel band.
I was
Like,
like,
come
come
on.
on.
So
Oh.
little disappointed there.
But iPhone 12 Pro, it's mostly geared toward hardcore photographers.
Hmm.
Um there's not much that I can really talk about really. All I can really know is that there's a 5 times zoom instead of a 4 times zoom now.
Yep.
You know much about LiDAR sensors? I've heard the term, but I never took up the time to look up what a LiDAR sensor really is.
So I actually have some unique experience with the LiDAR sensor. I had an internship previously working for a company that develops autonomous vehicles.
Oh
And
wow.
one of the biggest components of an autonomous vehicle is a LiDAR sensor. And basically, what a LiDAR sensor is able to do is create um, an environment, a virtual environment, based on these laser sensors that are sending out beams of light. You can't see them obviously, but they're sending out beams of light, and it's testing how long it takes to come back. So it's almost like echolocation if you want to think about it in that way. And so it's able to create very very specific surroundings relative to the sensor, and so what that offers the iPhone, as compared to an autonomous vehicle, as it's able to do augmented reality AR very very well, and it's also able to pick up people and things in dark settings. So if you're trying to use the I forget what they call the lens, but the lens for taking, high exposure pictures, and you need to focus on a person, then this lidar sensor will enable you to basically focus in on the person, even though you can't really see the person in your in your frame.
Okay. I'm blanking on the word for that actually right now.
Yeah, yeah. So, that was a pretty cool feature to me, was that they had that lidar sensor, and as you said, they have the 5 times optical zoom rather than the 4 times. Another thing about the iPhone 12 Pro is that it offers the Max version, which there isn't for the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Mini.
I found that
So
really
you're
weird.
yeah, yeah, you're able to get that 6.7-inch display rather than 6.1, which is the biggest iPhone ever. And I feel like every year we're talking about the biggest iPhone ever. So
Honestly though, they're growing by like zero point 0.2 inches and they're just like the biggest iPhone ever. I was like, oh my god.
agree.
They
Um,
also trimmed it down a little bit by a couple millimeters, I believe, too,
mhm.
and made it lighter by a couple grams.
Yep. And
That's
they
that,
they rather than saying the couple of grams that it went down by, they chose
they
to
give
do
you
it in a percentage.
percentages.
And so it looks much prettier if you do it as a percentage rather than,
It's
the 0.2 grams that they took off.
yeah.
So the drawback of the Pro, obviously, and as Brian and I were saying, this is a beautiful, beautiful phone, as at least with how they showed it. It's a beautiful phone, but it will cost for the Pro itself, not even for the Max. It'll cost $999, and for the Max, I believe it'll be $1,099.
I was
And
expecting a bigger jump between the
yeah,
two, honestly. So when they said 1099, I was like, that's pretty generous because I feel like maxes usually go for like what I feel
I,
no,
12.99, I believe.
that's what I thought. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I I think that they're doing this as um a response to coronavirus. I think they're trying to keep things grounded a little bit rather than, gouging prices. And I really respect Apple for that because
Hmm.
they know people are going to buy it, whether it's 12.99 or 10.99. So, limiting their prices, of course, it opens up, more of a market for people who can't spend the 12.99. But I think for people that are spending 10.99, they're not, going to be saying 12.99, no thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did name the prices for the iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 mini.
Oh yeah.
iPhone
So
12 starts at 799, and what did the mini start at 699?
yes, sir.
Okay. And then a couple things to know about the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Like we said earlier, this is the main selling point will be the camera. Apple Pro Raw. I didn't pay much attention to that part, but I believe that was just like editing. Was it editing your photos with
It
your phone?
was. It
Okay.
was. And they made a big deal of it. I didn't see the big deal. I didn't see the appeal. And I'm sure like that someone who knows photography or cinematography is pumped up about this feature. I'm sure they're like really happy about it. It's just not something that would appeal to me. I didn't really get it.
Yeah. And then they have that they upgraded from a triple 12 megapixel to a pro 12 megapixel camera system. And they have nighttime portraits, which I kind of like that they're putting more R&D into nighttime
Hmm.
photos. Uh
I
like
agree. And I
cuz
think they're moving it to the selfie camera as well, if I'm not
yes.
mistaken.
Yes, selfie nighttime portraits, I believe.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I mean, the selfie camera has always been kind of lagging behind the other cameras by quite a large amount.
Oh
And I
yes.
mean, that's fair. Like it's like a quarter of the size of the other lenses, but for it to be kind of up to speed finally, that I think that's a pretty cool innovation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And then with video recording, you get HDR video recording with Dolby Vision up to 60 frames per second. So that's going to be a very, very smooth video as compared to the iPhone 12 that has a 30 frames per second uh, recording, which is still pretty like smooth. But the jump from 30 to 60 is a pretty big, significant jump that you
It's
can,
noticeable.
yeah, that you can notice. And then night mode time lapse, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah. I
Not a big
that'll be
selling point
cool
to
like
me.
for the one time in the 3 years that I own this phone that I can take a time lapse of the stars, but I mean, I don't know. That's another feature that's like cool to have, but it's not going to pop up to someone other than a photographer on a daily basis.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're like a deep like photographer or video shooter, I can definitely see why this phone could really appeal to you. Because of the processing power that comes along with it, and the new features that Apple is adding to the editing feature of it. So I can definitely see this worth it for someone who does take a lot of photos and who wants to say maybe get into vlogging. I can see that. Um, but yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point. And for Apple made a point of saying they kind of tied it to the situation we're in today. They said we're using our cameras more than ever, which we are, for things like virtual school and pod or for like vloggers, as you said. So for those people, this phone is 100% worth it. Maybe not for those people going to virtual school, but for those vloggers, or as Brian was saying, as someone who wants to get into photography, this phone is awesome. This probably has every feature that you would ever need for a high definition camera. I just don't know if it's worth it for your average user rather than the iPhone 12, which you can get for $200 less.
hmm yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm still pretty bummed that they didn't offer the iPhone 12 in a Max version because
Hmm.
I currently switched to the iPhone 10s Max, and honestly, I'm very accustomed to the Max size now. And my girlfriend has the iPhone 11, and like whenever I hold her phone, it's just so small to me now.
Right. Yeah.
But
Uh, I think I'll go through that adjustment as well. But as I was saying, I think I think I'll like the adjustment back because I'm a big one hand texter. Like when I'm like walking or something, and I can't do that on my Max. So
yeah, I feel
I
you.
don't know. There's perks.
Yeah, and honestly, the thing that I liked about the iPhone 8 was that you can like your thumb can touch from the bottom of the screen to the top.
Hmm.
And that's one thing that I loved, but I don't know even if the iPhone 12 mini can even do that since you're getting more screen.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's something to test out when you go into the Apple store. Obviously, we
Yeah,
haven't
that's
had
true.
our hands on these phones yet. This is just reaction from the Apple event.
Yeah. So your opinions on people who currently have an iPhone 11 or iPhone 10s, do you think they should upgrade? And well, who do you think should upgrade to these phones?
I think you should upgrade if you don't currently have a edge to edge display, for sure. I think that's, such a cool feature. I think that's, one of the best innovations we have had in a long time is the edge to edge display. Do I think that people should switch up from, iPhone 10 or iPhone 11? Not particularly, unless something's wrong with your phone. I don't see the huge draw to go up to this iPhone 12, at least until 5G becomes more supported in cities other than New York, Chicago, and LA. You know, you
Hmm.
know, hopefully within a year we'll have, quadrupled that number of cities. But until
Yeah.
then, the 5G support doesn't really do much for you. So I don't know. It for me, I think unless I didn't have an edge-to-edge display, I'm not upgrading at this moment.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely depends who you are really. If you are like a photographer or even a gamer, if you're
Hmm.
one of those people, then yeah, maybe it is worth upgrading. If you're like a hardcore photographer, iPhone 12 Pro Max or iPhone 12 Pro in general is a good switch up to you. But if you are a regular user who just uses their phone to surf the web, YouTube, and text, and you have iPhone 10s, I would say 10s is the cutoff for me. 10s, 10s Max, 11. I think you should stay where you are because when you're talking about processing power, Apple's like bionic chips are way ahead of the times, and I don't think you need that much power if you're only doing the basic things.
Agree. Agree. And yeah, as you said, it's catered to the person. If you're a photographer or if you're a gamer who needs this chip, then go for it. This is an awesome phone. It's just not, for everyone right away.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
here's a question for you. If I have an Amazon Alexa, should I switch over to the HomePod Mini?
I would say it depends where you're living, what your situation is. Do you have kids? Do you have a family, or do you even have roommates? And are they in the Apple ecosystem? If they are, and they are open to it, I would say so because I can definitely see the HomePod Mini being really helpful if you have roommates. Because if you're going to like the store or something or going to a restaurant, you can just intercom from your car and just say intercom to my roommates and say, "Hey, I'm going to Chipotle. I'm going to the grocery store.
Sure.
Do you guys need anything?" I think that's very helpful. But if
You
you're
know,
just using it to control your house and you don't have like a lot of Apple stuff, I think I would stay with the Alexa.
I agree. I agree. I'm actually in that position. I have an Alexa, and this HomePod Mini looked very cool today. But I don't think I can make the switch over to the HomePod Mini. I just it would be great to be more ingrained in the Apple ecosystem than I already am. But I don't think I need to make the switch at this time. this might be bad, but the first thing that popped into my mind when, you know, they came on the screen and they said, finally, your HomePod Mini is going to be so ingrained in your ecosystem that you'll be able to say, okay, Siri, text Brian, hey, I have Chipotle for you. But my first thought was, what if I'm having some people over and someone, goes up to my HomePod Mini, which, my friends probably would, knowing my friends, and they
Yes.
they texted something rambunctious off my HomePod Mini. So I don't know. That just I don't know how secure it is. Like there might be
Yeah.
safeguards in place to protect against that, but I'm not positive.
And yeah, one thing that I'm really curious about is like they said the HomePod Mini can detect voices and make your own like accounts if you have like a household. I'm very curious on how accurate that actually goes
Hmm.
because like each kid can have their own contacts in it, and I can already see how that can go horribly wrong.
How's that?
Because like if you're Jack and then you were just say, "Hey, text Sammy, what up?"
Yeah.
And then Stephanie comes over, and then she also has a friend named Sammy, and it's like, what happens?
Yeah, yeah. And
Or like, wonder
oh,
if you have twins and they have like the most
right.
identical voices.
That's something that happens with me and my brothers all the time is that like our voices are almost identical. And so I'm sure that a computer can tell us apart like better than, people, but still if we sound that much alike and say, just for example that both of our girlfriends have the same name and I say to text my girlfriend, "Hey, like, you know, I don't know, I'm
Yeah.
coming over," and then it texts his girlfriend that I'm coming over. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely would like to see how they go on about that. Personally, are you going to upgrade yourself to
To the
these
mini,
phones?
to the HomePod Mini.
To do the iPhone 12, 12 mini, or 12 Pro.
Personally, I'm not. Yeah, I've looked at all the pros and I've seen everything they have to offer. It's a beautiful phone. I really think that if you're in the upgrade mindset, you should totally upgrade. Um, it's a great phone. I'm just not currently in a place. My phone's not cracked or anything. I don't really see the need to shell out additional money to get this phone.
Yeah, I do agree with that. For me, 10s Max. If I could add some features from like the iPhone 11, it would have to be night mode and maybe a better screen. But honestly, I'm happy with the 10s Max. I think the 10s Max is like still fast enough for all of my needs. One thing that I don't want to give up is Force Touch. Force Touch is something that
Mm.
I love, and I'm so mad that they got rid of it and replaced it with haptic touch because it's not the same.
What's the difference?
I don't know, like Force Touch for me, like I like feeling like when I push down harder, it just gives me that peaking feature.
Wait,
And
did they take that away in the iPhone 12?
they took that away in the iPhone 11.
Really? Okay, I'm staying with
So
my iPhone 10X or 10s X Max forever. I like
yeah,
that too.
because honestly, because with the haptic, you're all you do is just hold your finger there, and
Yeah,
like for me, I like the satisfaction of knowing that like when I push down, it's actually doing something. But that feature is something that's holding me back.
yeah,
But and aside from that, I'm also like the person like I think the iPhone 12 is still in beta. So I usually get phones when their S form comes out because that's
that's
when they
fair.
kind of because like that's when they kind of perfect everything.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I've for as long as I can remember, I've been on the S line. I feel like you know, uh, people have different upgrade paths. Like you're eligible every year or so, and so people either upgrade on the non S path or the S path. And I'm really glad I'm on the S path.
That's the way that like I see it. When you release like just like the base number iPhone, that's when they're testing new features out. But once you get to that S factor, that's when you get like Gen 2 of like all of those features.
With the
and that's
exception being, I believe Siri came out in the iPhone 4S. So she was, prototyped in the 4S,
true.
whereas the
Yes.
5 was the refined version. So not always the case.
Wait, yeah. Also, you mentioned Siri. One thing that I'm surprised that they didn't mention in this presentation is that they didn't upgrade any features to Face ID or any of the speeds,
True. True.
which is usually something that they always touch upon. It's always like Face ID is at least 10 or 20% faster, but this time they did none of that.
Hmm.
But maybe that's just a given because with their Neural Engine Gen 2 or something.
I hope
I,
so. And I really hope that it's also a given that the battery is getting better. I know earlier you said online it still says that it lasts 17 hours or so, but maybe that's just because, as the processor got bigger and everything got, faster, it needed to draw more energy and the battery got better, but at the same time the displacement of the battery life stayed the same, if that makes sense.
mhm.
So there was no noticeable, oh, now we get 18 hours. But it actually is a better battery. It's just supporting more.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe it'll be like the Apple Watches where they can also maybe keep the same battery, but with well, I know that with the Series 5 watch, it's like a always on display, but it's
Hmm.
efficient.
Hmm.
So it's not draining as much battery. So I'm guessing maybe hopefully that the screens on this is like the same feature like
Yeah.
that where it's efficiently using your battery.
What are
Because then
some
I can see.
things? What are some things that you wish they had introduced at this Apple event that they did not?
Honestly, like the battery is that big one for me.
Hmm.
Camera, I wish they upgraded it. Um, Face ID, I wish it was faster. I just like if I'm upgrading to a new phone, I want to be like I want to feel like I'm getting my money's worth, and I can't justify upgrading to a whole new phone based on a CPU.
Yeah, and
But
5G support.
yeah, and something that's probably and yeah, that's like the one thing that I don't understand either because 5G is not a big thing yet, but they're selling it like I just don't I'm not into like getting into the early release of something because those always
Right.
tend to go because there's never a perfect launch of anything. How about you?
Well, so it's been rumored for a long, long time that Apple is coming out with these tile competitors, and I
Oh
was
yeah, I
really,
wish. Yeah,
I was really looking forward to Apple coming out with those. There was lines of code within this iOS 14 release that had support for those. I forget what they're called,
air
but
tags or something.
yeah, something like that. And I don't know. I don't know if I would get them, but that would be really cool. I have tiles myself and they work really well. So if something like that could be integrated into the Apple ecosystem, even better.
Yeah, I do agree. I'm really surprised that they did not announce that this keynote. And yeah, I think that's like the only thing that they didn't really touch on that's been leaked or rumored. But overall, it was an okay event.
It was fine. It was
I've seen
beautiful.
better.
It was
It was
beautiful, as
beautiful.
we said. It just didn't have the content that we were looking for.
Yeah, if you're interested in seeing some nice cinematography, definitely check it out. That's our coverage on the Apple keynote. Let me know what you guys think of these little breakdowns and our opinions of the event. This was definitely fun. I definitely like discussing what Apple brings to us every single year. I like their innovations are worthy of talking about. And thank you, Jack, for coming on to the podcast to discuss this with me. I know that like a lot of people don't really get into the nitty gritty of the iPhone specs.
Definitely.
They just want to know, should I upgrade it? What am I getting? But I like
Thanks for
talking about
having me,
that.
Brian. I really appreciate coming on. It's always great to talk to you. Um, and yeah, if you guys have time, I have a short tech podcast based around questions that users run into on their everyday lives. So, we're trying to answer things like what is the cloud or, what is Bitcoin? things like that. So if you're interested, feel free to come by. It's called Pardon My Tech.
I will link that in the description. I think it's a wonderful idea because a lot of people are not really tech literate these days. And when you throw words at them like, oh, it's done in the cloud, and then they're just like, what is the cloud? This, and then Jack's podcast is a perfect way to get a TLDR of it and in a general and like deeper understanding of it. So if you ever want to teach your parents or something some more about some tech, Jack's podcast is definitely the way to go. Once again, thanks Jack for coming on. Definitely will want you to come back when Apple has another event so we can cover it.
Thanks a lot. Anytime.